better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and welcome to this space where automotive comes together to learn, to share, to execute. Thanks for choosing to be here on this Wednesday, December 17th. Hey, we've got a heck of a show coming up today as a little setup for that. EV demand didn't fall off a cliff by accident. When government rebates faded, demand softened. When charging infrastructure isn't there, buyers hesitate. And when politics hijack the conversation, entire segments of the market walk away. Is that what's up with EV? Is that what happened? Well, today we're bringing in Mike Murphy. He's a political pundit, a strategist, and head of EV for All America. So you know his take on that. He's also a Republican, which is a fascinating stance, to break down what's really happening behind the EV headlines and why dealers are being asked to carry risk for decisions they didn't make. Then we've got Ivy Johnson, who will pull back the curtains on dealership marketing waste. Finally, Christian Crain, he's COO of a 22-store group, sharing what it looks like when operators stop chasing mandates and start protecting profit. From video MPIs to technology that actually reduces friction, this isn't about ideology, it's about risk, reality, and dealer survival. But before we go there, let's hit today's industry headlines. All right, first up today, Ford is ending the production of the all-electric Ford F-150 Lightning. This is big news. Just came out Monday after Monday's show, taking a $19.5 billion write-down as it retools its EV strategy. The Lightning was once framed as Ford's next possible Model T moment, but sales have been sliding amid tougher competition, weaker incentives, and softer demand for large full EV trucks. Rather than scrapping the nameplate entirely, Ford plans to reintroduce the Lightning as an extended range EV using a gas generator and an electric battery and deliver more than 700 miles of range. Hybrid much? Workers from Lightning production are being shifted to gas and hybrid F-150 lines. Meanwhile, Ford still plans a midsize fully electric pickup in 2027. Looking ahead, Ford is now projecting that 50% of its global volume will be a broad mix of hybrids, EREVs, or EVs by 2030. Next up today, Hyundai and Kia have reached a settlement with 36 states to resolve a long-running complaints that millions of their vehicles were too easy to steal because they lack standard anti-theft protections. Under the settlement, every new Hyundai and Kia sold in the U.S. will now include engine immobilizer technology, closing the gap that fueled years of thefts and viral how-to videos. For vehicles already on the road, the automakers will offer free zinc-reinforced ignition cylinder protectors, not making that up, expanding fixes beyond earlier software updates that didn't fully solve the problem. Not that we want to announce that. The agreement also includes a $4.5 million in consumer restitution for theft-based related losses, plus another $4.5 million paid to the states to cover investigative costs. Eligible owners can claim up to $4,500 for a total loss or $2,250 for partial damage. I guess that covers deductibles, with claims open through March 31st, 2027. It'll be interesting to see do insurers come in and scoop up those rebates. I don't know. Hopefully, this remedy closes a painful chapter for Hyundai, Kia, its dealers, and its customers. Next up today, the Trump administration is proposing a reset of federal fuel economy rules, and S&P Global says the ripple effects could land both automakers and consumers over the next several years. Under the proposal, EV adoption wouldn't be baked into fuel economy targets, and automakers would still be able to lean on alternative fuel vehicles to meet compliance, obviously lowering near-term pressure to go fully electric. Sorry about that. The bigger shift is classification. Many crossovers, SUVs, and even minivans could be reclassified as passenger vehicles instead of light trucks, making fuel economy math tougher across both categories. At the same time, the rules assume $0 fines for missing CAFE targets, which effectively removes enforcement teeth and reduces urgency for automakers to aggressively hit the goals. Zooming out, fans of the proposal believe the new rules will make vehicles more affordable, but critics say all they will do is introduce more uncertainty into long-term product planning. And finally, up today, U.S. automakers and their lobbying partners are escalating concerns about China's rapid global expansion in automotive retailing, arguing the playing field is fundamentally tilted by heavy Chinese state subsidies and excess capacity. Recently, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation asked Washington to draw a hard line, blocking Chinese automakers and battery makers from setting up U.S. manufacturing and keeping existing bans on Chinese vehicle tech firmly in place. For context, Chinese brands are already pushing aggressively into Europe with lower-priced EVs and hybrids, while Canada is openly debating whether to relax its own China tariffs. That puts pressure on U.S. policymakers who are trying to balance trade protection, national security, and rising affordability concerns at the same time. What's the big picture here? Well, if Chinese brands ever gain a foothold in North America, market expectations would swing overnight, but the barriers are still high and the outcome is far from settled. But the challenge lurks and looms. And that's a wrap on today's industry news. Yuli, welcome.
Hey.
Dude, we've had a couple shows. It's crazy.
It's been awesome.
As I get on the comments out there, the conversations we've had over the past few episodes on stair steps, we're seeing a ton of comments online on that. Love to hear your thoughts, our loyal listening audience. Brokers, particularly in the East Coast, as OEMs struggle or push for additional volume. White hot conversation. And then also on transparent pricing, advertising the right price and establishing a relationship with consumers on value, not on the low price sticker shock reverse. All are huge topics. To all our listening audience, a reminder, today's episode is being streamed across all CDG social media platforms. Post your comments. We'll bring them into today's show, and it'll help drive the conversation. So fun stuff, Yuli, yeah?
Excited to get it going.
Yeah. Well, actually, to that extent, let's actually go to our first guest today. Up first, Mike Murphy, founder of EVs for All America. Mike, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. I'm a fan
Mike.
and a listener, so this is great.
Oh, wow, you are. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for thanks for saying that. So we read a little bit about China. I was going to go one direction, but let's actually go to China. It's interesting. I've often thought we had Ohio State Senator Bernie Moreno on here a while back ago, and he was talking about there would never be a day where Chinese product would be allowed to come into the U.S. And then I traveled overseas, and I saw Chinese product all over the place. And it actually is good-looking product, particularly in the EV space.
Yeah.
Are we at a risk of not competing in a free market against China, where at some point, if the market opens up, we're going to be swallowed up because we're behind?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is the Chinese did sell 90,000 cars in America last year. They were Lincoln Nautiluses and Buick Envisions. They're catching up on the Brits, who are just over about 100,000. So it's a huge threat. They made 30 million vehicles last year. We made 10. They're the leading auto manufacturer there. Now, they're number one. They're the number one exporter. And the problem is when we go to a pure protectionist thing, we're going to wind up with really shitty products. Oh, excuse me. I know we.
You're right. No, you can say shit. You're fine.
No, so, the problem is in the short term, if we let them in, they're going to kill us.
Yeah.
When a Chinese auto worker can make $9 an hour and UAW worker can make 80 with benefits, we're unsustainable. The reason I'm a nut for EVs is I grew up in Detroit. Around the car business. I'm old, but I was in high school in the 70s when the Japanese invasion came. And the Japanese were allies. They were fair competitors for the most part, and we survived that and made the industry better. I would like to get to a situation where we can compete with the Chinese, because otherwise we're going to be in fortress U.S. market, and they're going to dominate the rest of the world. I think what people don't understand is the Chinese strategy is political. Let's flood the market with cars and let's deindustrialize our geopolitical opponents. And if that happens, it's going to be really bad for the U.S. So people say, why are you such a nut for EVs? You don't look very green to me. And I go, no, I'm a wrench head from Detroit. My lifetime average is 4 miles per gallon.
Can I set this up just a little bit?
Yeah,
Because I think it's more, you're from Detroit.
Yes.
You're a Republican strategist. You are Republican tried and true. You've been on campaigns for people from Romney through McCain, Arnold Schwarzenegger, although California has a little bit of an exception. Like, it's insane that you would be pro EV. Why
cool.
are
Are
you
you on your
pro
phone?
EV? And why is EV such
Okay,
a
got you. I'll
politically
transfer you now.
charged topic?
Well, that is the question. And the reason I'm pro EV is I get out here to California. We charge minibar prices for gasoline out here. We have
Yes,
a
you
big
do.
gas tax. It's $7 a spike a gallon. So as much of a wrench head as I am, I kind of fell in love with the EV powertrain. There's a lot to say for the elegance of 510 moving parts. And so I got one. Not a Tesla, I got a BMW iX, and I love the damn thing. And I started looking at the future trends in the auto industry, and I saw that Republican consumers, led by Republican Pauls, a world I know well, reflexively don't like EVs. So I took my own money, breaking every consultant rule, and I went out and did a campaign-style survey, like we do in a campaign, and took a look at the problem. And these cars, these machines, have become politicized, which is insane. You don't pick your toaster or your dishwasher based on some political opinion. And a lot of it goes back. I like to blame the white polar bear. Remember when they launched the Nissan Leaf?
Nissan
Great car,
Leaf. Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The polar bear swam to America to hug the guy for buying a Leaf. From day one, they made these things dogma vehicles, virtue projectors, not how you sell cars. And all the polling we have on EVs shows when you sell the attributes, a lot less maintenance, no gas. Average family spends $2,000 a year on gas. All these, and they're fun to drive. If you give one to somebody for a weekend and they don't have to tow anything, you got a good shot at a sale. Instead, we've divided it on fighting over politics. Oh, they're green cars, they're Democratic cars. And since 40% of car commerce is right of center people, new and used, we cannot succeed in electric vehicles unless we get over that. So that's why I started EVs for All America, red and blue.
Mike, it's fascinating because when I was a kid, the conspiracy theory was that there was some massive conspiracy out there in government to keep people, or business to keep people from more fuel efficient vehicles, right? There was always the person that was under witness protection for, knowing the code to turning water into gasoline.
Yeah, well, there's the old bad movie with Marlon Brando, The Formula, the secret gasoline pill, and George C. Scott. It's funny.
That was kind of a conservative Republican concept, and then it flipped to your point on that ad, or an idea about that ad. That's fascinating, right?
Well, and it's gumming up the market. Well, the Chinese are running the table. And that's project that 10 years. Farley said there's no future for the Ford Motor Company if we can't compete globally in EVs.
I was astonished to hear that when he said that, by the way.
And for a public company boss to say that, now he just had to take a $19 billion write-off. He had no choice. The Chinese will write anybody a check to start a car company making ICE and EVs. Here, Trump, and I'm a Republican, but I'm not a Trumper. I've been anti-Trump since I dealt with him back in the 90s in New Jersey when my client was the governor of New Jersey, Christie Whitman. Trump's sandbagging the American auto industry between these tariffs and letting the Chinese run wild with subsidies and killing ours. It is not good. And people don't, we polled Republicans only about EVs. And we asked them a question: which country makes the most cars and light trucks in the world? A third of them said USA, number one. A third said Japan, number one. Only a third knew it was China. And when we told them about that, they freak out because they understand for national security. One of my favorite statistics is right before World War II, the Brits made about 500,000 light vehicles. French made about 400,000. Germans made about 440,000. Before Pearl Harbor, we made 4.7 million in the U.S. I had relatives on those lines. That's how we won World War II, American assembly lines. One of the auto CEOs told me, right now, if the Pentagon calls me for 10,000 tanks, I'm going to tell them to call China.
Yeah.
We only build 2 ships a year, warships.
But Mike, that's part of Trump's play with the tariffs. It's to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. and increase our industrial manufacturing capability so that, and he often will cite, he won't, but his apologists will cite pre-World War II industrial might, and we've lost that. It's been exported. So without that, how do you, I guess there's 2 questions in here. How do you accomplish what he's trying to do, void of tariffs, and bring that manufacturing might back Let's go there first, then I'll ask
Well,
the EV question.
first of all, Trump doesn't understand the North American manufacturing footprint, that it's integrated, Mexico, U.S., and Canada. So when he talks about foreign competition, he goes and targets the hometown team, which is those three countries. That's one.
Yeah.
Two, Trump's on a shot clock. Anything he wants to do is going to be, he's going to lose the Congress next year. I mean, I think about an 80% chance. So his political power after year one is going to start sliding. Okay. And what I know because, I spent a lot of time talking to auto executives with our data about breaking down these walls and sales. The Democrats will be back in some form, and then you're going to get mileage standards again. So they're going to get whipsawed on EVs, which again is bad. This jerkiness is bad. We ought to have a slow policy, and we ought to eventually have subsidies that fade out. But you can't give these guys steroids, then yank the needle, then ask them to lift twice as many weights. And I mean, we have the government policy is so schizophrenic. It's a mess. And, Trump says he'll create more U.S. manufacturing. Most of the auto capex spent in the last 2 years, and it's been a huge pile, particularly in Georgia and Michigan, is EV manufacture. I mean, go check out that Hyundai plant in Georgia. That's the most modern auto plant in the world. Even the Chinese aren't there. And so when you cold turkey all that stuff, you see Ford, they're now trying to convert their battery plant to, power grid as a backup. They might be able to succeed, but you can't have people spend 10-year capex billions and then yank the plug, and then in 2 years another party comes in and says, hey, we want higher mileage standards. It's insane. We're self-defeating. Yeah. Well, the Chinese run the table everywhere.
Yeah. Here's what I would say that's interesting is let's back up and make the argument for EVs to our auto dealer audience, because in my world, in Midwest, in Illinois, where you saw pictures of Teslas stranded in a terrible snowstorm, right, and stuck, you couldn't charge them, you couldn't do anything with them, to Texas during their ice storm when the politician went to Mexico to escape it, right? Like, EVs have their shortfall, and in my footprint, there's less demand for them. As an auto dealer, we'll meet the demand everywhere that it is. But it is interesting. Federal rebates go away. The demand goes down. There's this huge expectation that these off-lease EVs are going to flood the market and further reduce the ability to purchase. What's your message to auto dealers about why EVs when the market doesn't seem to show the demand that we've been pushing for the past 3-4 years?
Right. No, we have to fix the market, no doubt about it. That's getting over the political brand baggage and the dumb politics of it. We got to get a subsidy back. We're pushing here in California for a $3,500 conquest credit. If you switch to ICE, either new or used, there's $3,500 for the consumer. But you know what the real incentive for dealers, and we're about to do a research study on this. I'm curious what you guys think, and your listeners. You can, send comments to evsforamerica.org. I was talking to the U.S. head of one of the big import car companies, and I said, your dealers, there's not a lot of incentives to sell an EV. If you're the salesman, the customer will take a month to figure out the home charging. They're going to go to the Walmart, wait 2 hours. They're going to ding you on the post-sale questionnaire. So, you're scared. The dealers think when that car rolls off, there's no service revenue for there. There'll be new tires, but I'm competing with Tire World down the street. No margin. What's in this for me? So I asked this guy, the new U.S. president, I said, what if instead of giving people $5,000 in our subsidy, we gave them $2,500, we gave the dealers $2,000 for every new or used EV they sell? And nobody's ever pitched that before. He thought about it for a minute and said, car dealers are really good at selling cars if you pay them to do it. So I think we'd sell a lot. So we're exploring some subsidies for the dealers to make up for all that lost service revenue.
But in a free market, why subsidize it at all? Is there a greater good that you're trying to drive towards? Or do you come back to, hey, it's cleaner energy, even though they're expensive batteries? A dealer would tell you that the dumps where these batteries go after they're wasted is a toxic landfill. It's a challenge.
Yeah, that's been true. Recycling's coming fast because there's too much value in the battery to dump it. We just haven't industrialized it. That's going to solve itself. The thing for the dealers is if you want to make your quarter next year, EVs are not going to save you unless you're in a couple of really good counties, like here in LA County. I mean, we sell 1 out of 3 EVs in America here. Yeah. I think you can make some money competing with your competition in a market where nobody else is trying to sell EVs and you run a good digital and you're the EV guy in Kansas City for Cadillac or whatever, I think you can carve out a niche. But on the macro side, we got to create more demand. And that's what the subsidies help do. If we don't do the subsidies, everything will be fine until the Chinese show up with really cheap cars.
Yeah.
And nobody says the Chinese are going to use a dealer model. That's part of the trend. We see the Scout fight. There's a big fight in Washington State with Rivian trying to go direct. And I polled that. 80% people say no, dealers shouldn't have they should have to compete with direct sales. So the EV product, 80% of people who get an EV stick with it. So if you get them into the EV, they do tend to have longevity. The problem now is price. That's dropping. And I think the most interesting dealers in the country on EVs will be Mercedes and BMW and to some extent Nissan stores next year. Because the Germans have been getting killed in China in the domestic market. Used to be a cash cow. They couldn't sell enough, to some extent GM too. So they've got their first China killers coming out. The BMW iX3 is going to be about 60 grand, 400-mile range, charges like a demon. It's Chinese quality, and it'll be in this market. Mercedes has an equivalent one. The new Leaf, that thing's a killer, 300 miles at 32 grand and decent charging. So the better products are coming now, and the dealers are going to learn from those because I think if we can get the politics out of it, and it's what we're working on, the demand's going to rise. And you still have to offset that service lane revenue, though, which, as you guys know more than anybody, is a big part of a lot of successful dealers. And when nothing breaks, it's a consumer argument. It's not a EVs are good for me because I got more transactions coming argument. So we got work to do. You can't force the dealers to sell them, but I think you can incentivize them. Yeah. And that's the consumer incentive too. People don't need the 35 or 7,500 to afford the EV. They want to be paid a bonus to take the charging risk that they all feel when they buy the car. The reason we like 3,500 for states to do, like California, more affordable for the state, conquest only to target the money. And if you're trying to close the lease deal, $100 a month on a 36-month lease, give or take, is a good selling tool because you guys, again, know better than anybody, cars are sold on payments. So we're trying to find a smaller but more practical subsidy for about 5 years because otherwise our companies and the Europeans who make and sell here, biggest exporter of cars in America is BMW Spartanburg. The president, it's funny, the chancellor of Germany likes to say he drives an American-made car. It's a BMW from South Carolina. Anyway, without a little help, if it's pure free market and the Chinese government's writing blank checks that, hey, go wipe out Ford. You don't have to make any money. We're covered the tab. It's not a fair fight. In fair free enterprise, if the Chinese had to make money, we could do great.
Yeah. And so actually to your point, going back, you said Chinese wouldn't necessarily respect our distribution model. There's already evidence of that in Australia. BYD went into the country, had franchise agreements with local dealers, didn't like how the product was being marketed, placed, shelf space, and they came in and they took over those, those points. I mean, they're
not particularly democratic in their outlook.
No. So, but the U.S. will win ultimately, and we will win ultimately by creating a better product. The problem is they truly are just flooding that market. So to that point, how do you create more demand in the EV space? If we agree it's better for our economy, if we agree it's better for the U.S., our power outlook, how do you create true demand, not subsidized, but true demand among the American consumer and American dealer?
Well, you keep chasing lower prices. The new, for all the sadness about the Lightning, the new Ford platform with that new manufacturing plan, take half the parts out of it, that'll get copied. They're on a way to a win there. So 27, 28, 29, I think is going to be good. So lower prices and change the marketing. If I see another green leaf on a car, my head is going to explode. The green stuff, by the way, people who care the most about climate change, they like EVs, but you know why they like them? No gas. And, they want to know about charging. So the marketing has been all wrong. They're getting it. I talk to a lot of auto CEOs and, they're understanding that selling these things is a dogma niche. You sell them on that. Ford Power Promise is a really smart program. If I had a store in a good EV market, I would do that in a minute, which is the dealer takes the responsibility to put the level 2 charger in. The other thing we need is multifamily. If you're in an apartment building or condo, it's really hard to own an EV. We've done a lot of polling on this. It's not too hard to put level 2 in apartment buildings, a lot easier than a fast charging station. It'll open up a huge new market. There are 8 million people in California who live in 10 plus unit apartment and condo buildings, and none of them can buy an EV. And this is a 25% EV sales state. Yeah. So we got market barriers. We got to change incentives. I think dealers should get a small spiff in the next couple of years for every EV they sell to offset service. And we got to get the red and blue thing out. And the good news is we've tracked it for 3 years. We do a big poll every year. The Republican EV thing is EV hostility is going down, slow but steady. And part of that's Elon. He blew up the Tesla brand, which looks terrible in our polling, by the way. The Tesla's like on fire. It's a dumpster fire among people most interested in buying EVs, despite pretty good products. But among Republicans who hate EVs, they all like Elon Musk, and it's been softening their hatred for EVs. Yeah. We've had about a 15-point movement. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because the green leaf you mentioned, to quote a line from Anchorman, that escalated quick. Like it went from being popular to not popular, right? And it is still politically divisive. Can the state of California, as a state without federal subsidy, afford to provide those rebates that you're talking about? I'm not sure the state can.
You know, I'm spending a lot of time yelling at the governor who's pro EV. He had one in like 19, you know, I think he had an EV1, God help him, once upon a time. But they're looking at it. We have a budget crunch here, but we have some money. It's a matter of priorities. I'm less interested in some of the things they like to blow money on here, which haven't worked, and get to practical stuff like, you know, a $3,500 conquest credit. Probably about $600 million a year. Sounds like a lot of money. California,
not so much.
We're pretty big. You know, we're the 10th largest EV market in the world if we were a country. So you know, we're the only state up at our level. There are a couple that are close, like Washington and Hawaii and Massachusetts and Colorado.
So you mentioned consulting with and talking to a lot of the OEMs, and in those conversations, politics is a factor. The OEMs that have won these past 5-10 years in the EV fight, you could argue would be ones like Toyota and maybe Honda and Subaru, ones that have exercised some production discipline related to going full EV. They're not. They've leaned in on hybrid technology. What's your messaging to CEOs of these OEMs about the politics? Is it ride it out? Is it get more creative? What are you telling them?
I'm banned at the gate from Toyota because in the Washington fights to keep the subsidy, they are not on the team, and they're very influential. Now, you know, win, defining it the way I think you did, which is a fair way to define it, business win, they've done great with hybrids. Hybrids are kind of a great sales trick because they, on one hand, they're more complicated. They break down more. You know, most automotive engineers that bring up hybrids, they kind of stiffen a little, but they answer a consumer need, which is either lower fuel or plug-in hybrids, where you buy, I'm getting an electric car without the risk, except I'm never going to plug it in. So what I've really got is a gas car with a bunch of electric junk in the trunk I'm paying for that I use 10% of the time. That's why I like these E-Revs, because an E-Rev is an EV with a gas backup engine, which means it's EV first. It's a better engineering solution. They caught on in China. I think the E-Rev pickup trucks are going to do pretty well. I don't know if Ram can ever industrialize theirs. They've been promising it for years, but Ford will get one out the door, and I'll bet you'll see one from General Motors too. So, you know, what I tell the OEMs is you got to make a fundamental decision. Do you want to create enough EV brand and sales to be a player 10 years from now in the coming winter? And we got extra capacity. We got plenty of room for, you know, bankruptcy. I'll tell you a funny story about Toyota. So I have this slideshow of all the data I do. A lot of it's on our website, and we're going to put the new one out in January. So I was invited to SAE in Washington, and I took my roadshow there. I had about 800 SAE, you know, auto, government affairs, and a lot of engineering people in the room. I did my routine about attitudes on EVs, how to get over them, what people like and hate. So I'm walking out of the joint, and these two guys jump out from behind a display, and, hey, come with us. You know, they're looking around. We're Toyota engineers. Can we have a copy of your presentation? Because we show a lot of the brands. Toyota's always number one, strongest mass market brand in automotive in the U.S. So they're like, if we could only get these clowns in Toyota City to let us build a great EV, we'd wipe Tesla out. Our dealer network, our ability, engineering, and they were right. But we're spending a lot of time with goddamn hydrogen, So it was very funny. So I had to like slip them a copy like porn or something, to take back to wherever.
It was a secret Russian meetup. But here's the thing, Mike.
Exactly.
You said if you define success like I did, business, that is how you define success at Toyota and among these OEMs. You can't.
Right.
It's not a profitable charitable organization. You've got to turn a profit. And Toyota, by every metric, has one. How would you define success?
I'd look at share. If I were at Toyota, and I'm sure there's somebody like this in the C-suite, I'm looking at Asian sales, and I'm watching the Japanese start to eat Toyota double digits annually. And I'm like, hey, Godzilla's coming, guys, and these EV products are coming, and we're not competitive in EVs. And there have been squawks coming out of there that they're going to be. Their slowness has paid off for them.
Yes.
But they got to wake up, because the Chinese can hurt them too. They are not invincible. And same with Honda. And Honda, they've all got the same problem. If they go hog wild for EVs now, they lose so much money. Wall Street will come in and murder the management team. Because there are a lot of people in Wall Street who's like, we don't care. What we can do is double the stock for 36 months, and then I'll buy a yacht and I'm out of it. And the next poor bastard will hand over the Chapter 11 here at GM. But there's enough. This is an emotion-driven industry. People don't work in autos because it's easy. They work because they love this incredibly hard industry at every level, retail all the way up to the C-suite. So the Farleys of the world have to balance the cost and not being eaten by the folks who would love to put $10 a share on Ford stock for 3 years and then don't care. And whether or not, his dad was a Ford employee, whether or not Ford will be here in 10 years. So, they're pulling back on the stick now because the market's pulling back. And I'll do my Trump bashing for a minute. He's not helping. The Chinese government's writing blank checks, wipe out American auto industry. How much? And, Trump's talking about a time machine to 1938, which doesn't exist anymore.
So it's interesting that model of wiping out, that's the same model Walmart used and all these other large companies used to knock out smaller competition. And it would be a shame if we were victims of that same strategy, because we built the strategy, Mike. We
built the modern EV battery too, and then some CATL guys. Listen. Here's my scariest stat. By 2035, it is estimated by most credible people that the Chinese will provide 47% of the value-added manufacturing in the world.
Wow.
We will be probably in the teens. And by the way, you want to make a big drone that can do a lot of damage in the thousands, you need auto plants. A big, complicated manufacturing at scale. And we're great at it, by the way. In a fair fight, we can do okay. And the Europeans who like to build here, and the Koreans who are really good, and the Japanese who are really good, we can all do great at it, but we have a geostrategic competitor who's writing a blank check. We buy expensive aircraft carriers. They buy an auto industry designed to wipe out everybody else's industrial base.
They've bought a few aircraft carriers themselves, though.
They're trying. They're not great, thank God. But they're good, like everything they do.
Final, coming back to that CEO question, as you talk to the CEOs of OEMs, of the large automotive manufacturers that do business in the U.S., as it relates to EVs, what is your advice in this current environment, considering politics and the shifting winds of politics going back and forth? How do OEMs and dealers more specifically win today in EVs and hybrids?
I give them a couple pieces of advice. One, sell the attributes. Two, move your marketing spend, put a bunch of EVs in every store, let them burn down the miles to use, and give them to people for a weekend. That was an original Tesla strategy. It really works. You can't sell an EV in a 20-minute test drive. They got to experience it. Second, all the most successful EV stores in America have one thing in common at the retail level. They make the sales consultants drive EVs as their personal vehicles for a few months. It's sink or swim. It's like what the State Department does. You want to learn Turkish? We're going to send you to Turkey and put you in immersion for 6 months. So you got to have a different kind of marketing. You got to sell attributes. You got to give the dealers better incentives to make it worth the pain of the training, the service line. There's some CapEx you got to spend. You can't send a trainer in there for an afternoon. They got to drive the car. You got to give them special programs. Because remember, two ways to sell EVs. In your market, be the EV king and do a lot of digital marketing. People are out Google searching for it. Or you got to get good at the 35% of buyers are curious and interested in EVs, but not sure. Only salespeople can close that, only if they're really well trained and really well incentivized. And then finally, 80% of EVs in America are sold in just 15 states. Go there. We ask a question on our polls. Do you have friends or relatives who drive an EV? If they say yes, I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, Communist, whatever they are, they rate EVs, and every question we ask about EVs, 15 to 20 points higher. So go where they can see the fish and they have friends with them. Go to those 15 states. Forget on the feds. It's gone till the Democrats, and God knows what they'll be doing. But go to the state capitals and get the $3,500 there. Get the money for multifamily charging to open up those millions of apartment buyers, and work the markets where you've got a foothold, which are still pretty big.
Yeah. Well, Mike Murphy, founder of EVs for All America, Republican, pro-EV.
Yes, barely. Trump-hating right-winger. I'm a weird duck.
Pro some government spend to even incentivize it. We appreciate your perspectives today. And truly, thanks for being on the show. We'd love to have
It's
you
a great
back at
show.
some
I love
point.
it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Now, that's not something you see every day, is it? I love it. That was a fun conversation
awesome.
to hear that perspective.
Yeah.
Listen, that has been in the back of my mind ever since we spoke with Bernie. I'm just like the senator. I'm like, look, the Chinese are going to get so far ahead. We're going to pop ourselves into a competitive atmosphere. Like, that's the great democratic economic reason for dealers and for our economy to be not all in unhealthy wise on EVs, but to build a better product than they do.
Yes.
Because if the world demands it, we'll ultimately end up winning. And you'd hate to see them take over this place. I love Dave Rogers says EVs break and those repairs are profitable. They have less maintenance. EVs need time to evolve. Let's stop forcing the issue. I agree with him. EV Auto, Alex in Utah and in Nashville would probably also agree with that perspective as well. So let's talk overfuel. Yuli. Most dealership websites suck. They're slow, they're clunky, and hated by both shoppers and Google. Well, Overfuel cracked the code. Lightning fast AI-powered sites built to attract, convert, and dominate every search experience. Overfuel. We appreciate you supporting today's content, including that super interesting conversation that we just had. And I was excited when I saw him on the list today because I'm like, I watched him on Meet the Press earlier when I was a kid, and he's got that radio voice as well. So that was fun having a conversation there with Mike Murphy. But anyway, Overfuel, thanks for supporting today's show. All right, next up, I believe we have Ivy Johnson, CEO of Johnson Advertising
Christian.
LLC, although there was some conversation. All right, Christian Crain, VP of Operations at Crain Automotive. Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm a big supporter of you guys, but now a really big fan of Mr. Murphy.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Tell us why.
I can listen to him talk for hours because
He's
I
got a
agree
good
with
voice.
a lot of the stuff he says. He's
For
pretty
sure.
passionate about it.
In particular, what do you agree with?
Yeah, I think that, well, one, the fact that the government has gotten so involved in the mandates with EVs has kind of slowed the production down a little bit. And I think as much as they can stay out of it and let the automakers and dealers kind of work it out, it would provide a lot more success in the future. And then the infrastructure part is a huge problem for us in, smaller states like Arkansas, where I'm located. And, we've got so many apartment buildings that our residents wouldn't have a place to charge their EVs overnight. So I think the infrastructure, didn't really agree with him on the price part. I think it's more of we see a lot of range anxiety. I think the price is a problem, but it's more of the infrastructure and the range issue is what we see.
It's a great conversation to have post federal EV rebates because we are going to see a norm somewhere. And I think I'm tired of talking EVs. A lot of people are tired of talking it, but he makes a fascinating argument as he talks about us being competitive in a global market, Yuli.
Yeah. Well, Christian, enough EV talk right now, right? So we had you on the pod earlier this year, and we want to dive into that. But before we do, why don't you tell us, how's biz in your neck of the woods? And give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, well, so I'm the VP of Operations over Crain Automotive. We've got 22 locations now throughout the state of Arkansas, and about 1,500 employees. And we're pacing to sell just over 45,000 vehicles this year. And we think that, well, we do know that that's up year over year by a good amount, but we're starting to plateau a little bit. We took some really aggressive approaches to selling new vehicles and strategically selling used. And last year and earlier this year, and it shot our volume up tremendously. But we've kind of plateaued a little bit. We're primarily Kia, Hyundai, and General Motors and Ford dealers, and so we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown in the market for new Hyundai and Kia product, and so it's kind of been a little bit slower for us this last quarter.
So that increase in volume you talk about, as you've kind of got this meteoric share, which OEM is it tied to, and what was that strategy change that led you to that? Does it have anything to do with stair-step? We've talked a lot about stair-step.
Yeah. Well, stair-step has been a major player. We've got 6 Hyundai dealerships, and that was the first Hyundai in their pet programs. We're one of the first dealer or manufacturers that we've dealt with that's had an aggressive stair-step, and we think that, we've got most of the Hyundai dealerships in Arkansas, so we're kind of competing with ourselves to sell volume. But what we did, it was a little bit different. Not different, I'm sure. A lot of companies have done this, is we've gone after the Hondas and the Toyotas, and especially Toyota right now with their lack of inventory.
Yes.
And that's we've been able to play that game as good as possible, but it becomes very unprofitable when you don't hit the number, right? Mm-hmm. You're losing money to sell these new vehicles, and then they give you these really aggressive goals. And if you don't hit it, then it doesn't make sense to play along. But we're playing.
Yeah. Well, what are you using in your tech stack to, dial in and focus on getting it right? What are you using? Who are you using? Walk us through some of the things you've implemented over the year.
Yeah. So we've actually, we're on Reynolds and Reynolds right now for our DMS, and we use the vAuto for our inventory management. But we've taken an approach of just trying to centralize all of these systems and softwares. I was telling somebody the other day, we're going to do about $1.6 billion in revenue in 25. Why do we have a group text every night where our general managers send out our numbers, how we did that day? It just didn't make any sense to me why that was still a thing. And so what we've done, and I talked about this a little bit on our podcast, is we've hired some software developers to create our own reporting tools, and centralize every software and every vendor that we can use into one system. And so that's been really helpful as far as a reporting tool goes, because if you can't get reports on it, you can't manage it and you can't fix it.
Yeah.
What do you call this system? What do you call this program that you created?
Yeah, we call it Crain Vision, and it's not for sale.
I like it. Is it AI driven or what? Tell us a little bit about that, because Yuli and I are seeing a trend right now where large operators are utilizing either AI technology or just technology. They're relying in-house to create tools to better serve themselves that brings together different vendor partners. And it can be a challenge, but it can be a huge benefit. Tell us a little bit about how it works and maybe some of the challenges in creating this technology.
Yeah, I mean, we created it through Amazon QuickSight. And so if any dealer out there wants to do it, that's the one to use. Okay. But really, I think what it does for everybody on our dealership level is it just creates some consistency on what people are using for reporting. We've got all of our receivable schedules and everything on one software where we're not having to print out all of our CIT and warranty receivables and everything and go through it all. We've got all of our notes in one area, which our DMS doesn't really allow for us to do that easily. I think
No.
some of the bigger challenges that we've seen from it though is having or getting these large vendors and companies to allow us to
To
integrate
get the data, even though it's
and
your
get the
data.
data.
It's
That's
your
right.
data, Christian. So
Yeah, well,
tell
it's
us,
not.
it
So-
is, it should be. So
It should
tell us,
be.
how long did it take to develop it? How much did it cost? And before we go into some of the tech or the data issues, how long have you been using it and what's been the economic benefit? So how long did it take to create? How much did it cost you to innovate it? And then how long have you been
Yeah.
using it? What's the economic impact?
You know, we're still. So this got started real quick. I'll tell you, we have purchased some dealerships and done dealings with Penske Automotive, and
Okay.
we're big fans of theirs. And so they've got, I don't know what they call it, but it's something similar, and they've had it for forever. Really, it's like their hub for all employment related things, and so they use that, and so we had that idea, and it's still something that we're working on every day. So it took about, I'd say, 6 months to get operational, that we could start relying on it and having our general managers and sales managers and service managers, everybody really using it. It took about 6 months, but we're still, perfecting it every day. And it really has been a huge impact on us. It's made a pretty positive financial impact as far as just understanding, creating ways to clearly put the data out to people who might not understand it already. Right.
If
So
you-
you've got,
If you had to
you've got-
quantify the impact, what would you say?
Exactly.
It would be? Is there a way to quantify it? It's probably tough.
Not really. I mean, you could go look at you could look at some reports from, before we started using it on our receivables and see that we're picking up things a lot quicker. You could go look at all of how quickly we're closing ROs or how quickly we're getting cars through the shop. But as far as just putting a number on it, I think there's too many factors outside of that would help be able to do that.
So name names for us. Who were the best partners at helping you get access to your data? And then who was the biggest challenge as you went through this process?
Yeah, well, I made a mistake on our last podcast of naming names. So I would say that our DMS has tried as hard as they can to work with us.
Yeah.
But they're not capable of doing as much as we want them to be able to do to give us our data and actually push back some data. I think that's a problem, and they've got a lot of control, and they've got not just this DMS, but DMSs in general have the dealers handcuffed. I would say the easiest company that we've worked with is Cox. Getting stuff into vAuto or getting stuff from vAuto into Crain Vision was a very simple thing.
I love Crain Vision. That is so cool.
And the last company that we've, it was really easy and they were just quick, was Podium. We were using Podium and we were paying way too much. And we actually went to Digital Dealer and met with them while we were there. And we were like, why is this so expensive? And they told us it was because of an integration fee. So what we did was we took the DMS out of it, pulled some of our data, and have an API of just uploading it directly to Podium. And so we were able to cut our costs to about a quarter of what it was.
So on this platform, Christian, we want to highlight vendors that are doing a great job at helping to supply data to create this. Crain Vision is awesome. I want Ziegler Vision at Ziegler. We need CDG Vision. We continue to have it. But truly, you've got to be able to have partners that are willing to work with you on that data. So props to Cox Auto, props to Podium, and the others that helped you to create this. And props to you guys for ideating it, with Penske and thinking, hey, there's got to be a better way for us to engage with our data. We have talked with so many vendors and technology providers on this show that say our data is so fragmented. We're unlike any other industry. Maybe, I mean, there's few industries that are as fragmented as we are. And a key to the future is being able to utilize that data more on one platform than another. So we
Sure.
appreciate you sharing that.
And I will say, you know, we've looked at, spent a lot of time talking with a really up and coming DMS, and they've just now gotten over about 12%, I think 15% of the whole franchise dealership market, and they seem to be really capable. And what they really strive on is putting everything in one place, which is what we want, right? And what all dealers really want.
Then. Okay.
Yeah. And so, all right. And they're doing a great job with it, and it seems legit. So,
all right. Before we pivot away, because we apologize, we got to keep going here. You talked to us a little bit about video MPIs in your submission and backstage.
Yeah.
You recently tied commissions to requiring video MPIs. We've talked about it a lot on the show. Yuli and I are going to actually do a contest in January for the best video MPI service sales across organizations as a way of connecting with customers. Why did you tie commissions to it? What's the result been, and has there been an economic impact to that decision?
Yeah, well, I think video MPIs is something that we as a business should have been doing 10 years ago when the iPhone came out. And utilizing technology that every DMS or every service software has, and making it a standard. And so I think that the customer has such a poor view on a car dealership. So whether they're buying a car or they're going to take it in for service, they feel as if the dealer is going to screw me over in some form or fashion, right? So
lack of transparency.
Yeah, when you completely take that lack of transparency out of the equation, and you've got the tech videoing the problem, right, and getting underneath the car and showing them every issue that the estimate has, it really makes the customer understand why they need to do it, and especially if it's a safety issue. You hear it from the tech directly instead of some advisor that you've hired 2 months ago who's never done it before, trying to, fumble his words around to get it figured out. And so that was the first thing, was we got on the MPIs, video MPIs. And then we had an issue where, the advisors didn't see the value, they should have, because it was going to increase their hours per RO.
Seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, but they didn't see the value, or they were lazy. And so we're in the process of working on this even more, is tying their actual percentages of their gross created is tied to how many video MPIs on a percentage basis for customer pay and warranty are sent to the customer. And we think obviously anything that you put in the pay plan will be their job description. And so
they'll run towards it.
As long as we can get that video out, I think there's, we as a company believe there's about 50% of ability for a 50% increase in labor gross in about 0.4 hours per RO.
Yeah. So it's crazy to think about that at the end of 2025, there's still people that don't see the value. I think as car dealers, we take things for granted. In the biz, as long as I've been in, I can't tell you that I've ever sat and waited for an oil change in my adult life, right? Like, you hand the keys when you get to work, they freshen up the car. When you're done, you leave, it's done. We're forgetting about the consumer experience that doesn't work at a dealership, doesn't spend all day there, and they've probably never seen the underside of their car. So it's really shocking. We talk about dry eyes. Staying in the service lane here, we talk about, used car acquisition every show. It's probably the second most important piece, right? What are you guys doing differently to dial in on that used car acquisition?
Yeah, we've actually created it's funny that we're talking about this now, but we have a campaign, and we've created a website where we call Crain Buys Cars. And I'm sure that's similar with a lot of groups, but we're promoting that on all social media in the state. And so we've done that. We've got an in-house buying team, which is at our corporate office, of about 3 people that are just communicating through our CRM with these customers that want to just sell their car. And our goal is in any part of the business, but especially this, is let's create frictionless processes for the customer. And so, any car dealership group can go set up a website or use KBB's appraisal tool to get a lead and then try to sell them. But what we want to do, and I'm sure very many other dealers would want to do, it's just very hard to do, is create a good Carvana-like experience where we'll come to you to pick it up. We'll have the check ready. It'll be completely painless. You'll already have an idea as to what you're going to get for that vehicle. And then we have that customer, right? And we've got their data, and we can target them going forward for sales, and hopefully service in the future.
And we see varying strategies here. Are you staying strictly retail on your acquisition? Or are you going after any vendor?
We'll take anything.
Anything.
Yeah, we'll take anything, because we think that if we can just touch the customer,
of course.
We want, you miss every shot you don't take, right? So we want all of our we want every customer that we can possibly have. And if we can go buy a car that's $2,000 and doesn't run, and we can go sell it at the auction, we have a customer touch, and we think we can impact 5 other customers.
For sure.
So Christian, thinking about next year, you lead an enormous number of stores. You've got multiple OEMs. You're a well-established brand. Your auto group is in your marketplace. What are you working on, or what are you leaning into that you did really well in 2025 to kick off 26 in big style?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think our goal, and I've got a 2026 goal board up here, but
you should show it to us. We want to see it. Give us all the
I
secrets.
don't think y'all want me to stand up and try to move the
I'm
camera.
kidding. No, don't move.
But one thing that we've worked on pretty dramatically is our traffic management process, and that's going to be one of our main focuses on the variable side going forward in 26. We've hired brand ambassadors, I guess, or brand specific traffic managers for our corporate office. And we've worked very well with DriveCentric, our CRM, to be able to manage from a corporate standpoint and redo the way that we have our work plan set up, and honestly touch the customer less and not annoy them as much, but just get the message across in one text versus 6 in one day, right?
Yeah,
and so,
we've talked about that, Christian, on this show a lot. We in automotive are horrible at that.
Terrible.
Like, you've got one process to contact the customer in the service drive, and something delivers the RO, and you got the other birthday greet. Like, we feel like it's just surrounding the customer with us, but to the extent those messages are disconnected from each other, it comes across as insincere, and it fails to connect.
Noise.
It misses.
Absolutely.
It actually creates the worst, don't you think, Christian?
Especially if you have an AI sending the text for you. So if you've got like the automated birthday, I mean, we're all consumers. We all get those text messages every day. And it's just terrible. And I don't want us to get any more bad look.
You got to bring them all together somehow.
That's
I think
right.
about that customer that's in the drive. They've been there for 2 hours when they were supposed to be there for 20 minutes. They get a used car appraisal at the 2-hour mark. And then at the 2.5-hour mark, they get a happy birthday text. And they're like, I'm here. Come say happy birthday to me and get me out of here, right? So, Christian Crain, we want to have you back to tell us more about your journey and what you do in 2026. We absolutely appreciate you being here today on Daily Deal Live. Christian Crain, VP of Operations, Crain Automotive. Thanks for being on the show and sharing your perspectives on things you're working on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for being
Christian.
here. That was a fun episode. There was a lot of good banter. So just a few comments from our audience out there. So Lauren Klein says, Podium's always been so amenable to being a dealer advocate. And I agree with that. They share freely, I think. Eager Superfan says, time to rock and roll and make follows on all the leads that you had and didn't sell. Step up on your follow-up calls with salespeople end of the month in Q4 2025. Lauren Klein, video MPIs are a no-brainer, and anyone not doing them is just stubborn. I will tell you, I talked to a lot of dealers. They're like, you guys keep talking about it. Why do you talk about it? Because everybody should be doing it. Not everybody is. Eager K, TO every deal from this point to the end of the month. Don't let customers walk and tell managers talk to your customers. How about creating a great customer experience? We agree with that, Eager K. Dan C says fragmented approach. And then Lauren Klein says poor quality messages go straight to spam. And then also, I love this. This makes me happy. Jeff Mays, 1949, says, way to go, all political on here. And by the way, Jeff, everybody watching the show, you would know it's political for a moment, but that was truly fun because how many Republicans do you see pro all-in EV? In automotive, we're all in free market. We want anything that will generate money, help our employees, create a better work-life balance. We're all in on that. So it's fun to challenge somebody with a very different viewpoint. And I actually ended up agreeing with a lot of what he said.
Yeah.
So good times today. Good show.
Great show.
So thank you everybody for watching Daily Deal Alive, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we're here live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, 11 Mountain. So if this is your world, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never ever miss a beat. Do it now. We'll see you next episode, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.